What is the deal on tolls? With us today, Kevin Rennie of the Hartford Courant and Daily Ructions, and Duby McDowell, political consultant with McDowell Communications and moderator emeritus of this program. We thank you so much for being on the program here today. And Kevin, I want to begin here with you. What's the appetite for tolls? Because we keep hearing special session, we keep hearing trucks only. Some are like, no, I don't want that at all. Republicans are like, absolutely no tolls. What's the status right now?
The status right now is that there will be a special session scheduled. I understand that the toll bill will probably be passed after the new session begins on Wednesday. I don't have a date or time when it will pass, but I do think they have the votes. There is some, I believe, back and forth between the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats, and maybe also the governor's office. Remember, the Democrats have overwhelming majorities in both houses of the legislature, so they don't need a single Republican vote to enact tolls of any sort. But they do face this, and it is that the public really mistrusts state government. That mistrust has been growing more significant through the years. And people, I think the public in general doesn't believe that the tolls will ultimately only be applied to trucks.
Well, then that may be the media's fault and some of the politicians' fault.
Well, the media's fault.
It is. Oh. I'm not saying this media, but what's built into this bill is that there's so many restrictions on being able to put the camel nose under the tent, as everybody says, about moving it into the bill specifically prohibits tolls on cars. And, you know, that's an important thing to remember. I agree with you. There's definitely public skepticism of state government and always has. And we were talking about this same subject, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
And state finances have not been exactly models of pristine bookkeeping and management over the years. Yeah. So that, for instance, when the argument is made, well, we're going to put something in the bonds that will be sold to finance these transportation improvements, that says what the limitations are on tolls, what it has to be. Well, they can always refinance the bonds. The state does that all the time, and then issue new bonds without certain covenants acting upon the legislature.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify something I said. When I said the media, we don't have as much right-wing talk media in this state as we do nationally, but I force myself to listen to the talk shows, the AM talk shows, on which all they do is talk about tolls. And they're so disappointed, I think, that there's a trucks-only bill because now there's not legitimately something to complain about.
You've worked very closely with this governor. Do you think he just wants to get beyond this whole toll thing so he can work on his other things? Because since he was inaugurated, tolls have been in the headlines pretty much every week.
Well, I think any governor who puts forth a proposal wants it to happen. And I think the big reason for wanting it to happen is less political and more who wants to live through another Mianus River bridge collapse. I mean, we have an infrastructure that needs needs serious help, and we've got to get that process going and not do it by raiding the rainy day fund, which your Republican friends have proposed.
Well, I think some of your Democratic friends were receptive to a partial raid on the rainy day fund. But
it's not what's in the bill.
When it comes to the notion that that there's a crisis in infrastructure, if you ask the Department of Transportation, where are the bridges that are in danger of collapsing? There appear to be none, and I just think that the public, you don't help this program, whatever it is going to be, by saying to people, if you don't support this, bridges are going to be falling down, because we still do raise money to maintain our infrastructure. This is a plan to make big changes in it.
I want to shift gears completely and go to another big story this week, and that was the Denise D'Ascenzo Public Memorial. Both of you were there. I want to just get your insight. Duby, what did you think of it, and what did I know Denise meant a lot to you, but in terms of just it really reflected what she meant to the state.
Yeah, I think people who were in attendance and viewers who may have live streamed it really needed that event. Really, you said it very well, that it's probably the most shocking group mourning situation that Connecticut residents have had since the death of Governor Ella Grasso. And I think people needed to have some sort of outpouring and be able to just sit and talk and hear about Denise.
Your column mentioned that words would really set Denise off. She would laugh about them, and some amused her. And one that you wrote about in your column was the word haughty.
Yes.
And you had used that word in reference to certain politicians who will go unnamed in this particular segment. And I know that Kara, in her remarks, brought that up. Haughty was one of those words.
Yeah.
You tell us your thoughts on Denise and.
Well, Denise, I discovered here one day that she liked to read my column, and she really had an eye for. The two of us shared this. We enjoyed words that were not obsolete, but were also not in common usage. And
Yes.
so we would laugh about that. And she could give very quickly a reading of that word over and over in all sorts of different moods. And what my point was that if she'd gone to Yale Drama School instead of the Newhouse School at Syracuse, that Meryl Streep might have been looking over her shoulder when Oscar voters were marking their ballots. Because I mean, she appeared to have a gift for quickly being able to change the mood.
She certainly did. Duby and I worked, different periods. You were in the late 80s up through the 2001, I believe you were there. And so, we covered a lot of ground. There were so many WFSB alumni there who came out, and Denise had touched their lives in all different ways.
Yeah, whether, the sportscasters, weathercasters she'd sat with on the set, and co-anchors, and Don Lark and Jerry Brooks, and I mean, it was really amazing. Since we're on a show that has many politicians on it, I wanted to point out something I think came through, which is that Denise never thought, she never let the job define her. She never thought, because I'm on television, and you could substitute in elected office or whatever, that she was better than anybody else. And as we know, a lot of people who work in television, they just sort of assume because they're recognized in the supermarket that they're on a higher plane of some sort. She never felt that way. And I think a lot of her reporting, health reporting and reporting on people who are facing challenges, was sort of showing, that her concern for people.
And she enjoyed Connecticut. She loved it here.
She did.
And she could have, as you wrote,
she could have gone
so
anywhere.
eloquently in your column, she
Absolutely.
could have worked elsewhere.
And we were lucky that she stayed here. And Diane Smith, who they started around the same time in the 80s, said that when they started, they would laugh that they were two tall women at the time, in a business that was then dominated by short men, and they persevered.
Sure. And Governor Lamont quoted her as saying that Connecticut is small enough to feel like family, but still big enough to be so interesting.
And he declared Thursday, her birthday, Denise D'Ascenzo Day, January 30th, which is why I'm wearing coral today, because we are taping the program on Denise D'Ascenzo Day. We thank you both for being with us. Kevin Rennie, Duby McDowell. We'll see you again.
Thanks, Dennis.